Keep yourself in the loop of everything football. Listen to Alex and Jeremiah on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Hello there, I'm Jeremiah.
I am Alex, always and forever here.
Dedicated to college and NFL football. The latest football news on and off the field. NFL draft trade rumors. We've got you covered from the NFL, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC, and everything else in between. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, where we discuss the latest news, rumors, and games of the NFL and college football from the latest science this year's breakout stars and all the news in between. As always, I'm Jeremiah.
I am Ben.
And I am Anthony.
And we are your Friday crew of the GSMC Football Podcast.
The Friday crew, I love that. But anyways, apparently there was a football game last night.
There was a few.
Mixed
in with some baseball, but definitely some football because we're not talking baseball. This is the football show, not the baseball show.
And, of course, I'm talking about Louisiana Tech defeating West Kentucky 55-52.
Oh, I mean, that game was penciled in all week long as a marquee matchup.
Yes.
It was great and definitely a high-scoring game. Good for the fans.
And
I know we were all tuned in, right?
And Memphis defeated Temple after getting 27 unanswered points in a victory over Temple. No? No one watched this game? No? No one saw it?
No. I saw the score.
Okay, or, of course, or that brutal Thursday night football game between the Arizona Cardinals and the San Francisco 49ers.
You know, most people did have that really penciled in as a good matchup, but I was watching, you know.
I was watching,
everybody was watching Memphis and Temple and Louisiana Tech against their victory. But I was watching the Cardinals and the Niners game, though.
Yeah, I watched it until the late of the fourth quarter. Good thing the Red Sox and Indians were on.
We're not talking about baseball,
I know,
Jeremiah.
but I'm saying that's how bad this game was.
Yeah, definitely not too good, especially on the San Francisco side. So we started this game with 9 consecutive punts by both teams. We have Drew Stanton obviously playing quarterback for the Cardinals because Carson Palmer has a concussion after their loss to the Rams last week. But the Cardinals get it done. They win 33-21. I thought their defense really dominated. They sacked Blaine Gabbert 7 times. David Johnson had a great performance, 157 yards and 2 scores on the ground. Cardinals, as a whole, you know, Drew Stanton didn't play terrible, but he didn't do anything outstanding. He didn't turn the ball over. He had 2 touchdowns to Larry Fitzgerald, so he did okay. I think the main storyline was just really how bad the 49ers looked.
Yeah, they looked terrible, and I'm going to say it again. Blaine Gabbert is the most pathetic quarterback this year.
Starting quarterback, you mean?
Oh, yeah, most pathetic starting quarterback. You kidding me? That's all I gotta say.
He's definitely on the bottom of that list.
No, he is the most pathetic starting quarterback in the
Blaine
league.
Gabbert's, you know, his stats do not wow you at all. He's got a completion percentage of 58%. He's got 5 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, a quarterback rating of 69. Anthony, is it time we bring in Colin Kaepernick?
I think it is time that we bring in Colin Kaepernick. I would just be hesitant on when you actually do bring him in because there's basically 2 different times where you could bring him in and it would be like a quote-unquote acceptable time to bring him in because after this week, you got a little bit of time until they play Buffalo. You know, you got 10 days from the time it started yesterday to bring him in. That's enough time teams tend to do. They tend to do it either on a bye week or on a longer week. You have this against Buffalo, you can do that. Or if you want to do that, give him a little bit more rest. Let Colin Kaepernick rest. You know, you have Blaine Gabbert play against the Bills. See if that goes well. Have against the Buccaneers. And if both those games, if all that just blows up in his face, then you have a bye week and you can come back. You can throw in Colin Kaepernick against a bad defense in New Orleans, maybe build his confidence up that way.
I think for Colin Kaepernick, as John Cena would say, my time is now. Because I think
Okay.
I think it needs to happen now.
It needs to happen, okay? And if it doesn't happen soon, then I have no idea. For some reason, Chip Kelly seems he's content with losing with Blaine Gabbert. It needs to happen somehow, some way.
So
I
you
just
want to
don't
throw?
know.
So you want to throw Kaepernick to the Wolves against Rex Ryan's defense?
He has 10 days to prepare for that defense.
Chip Kelly did say after the game that
he's going to evaluate
he's evaluating literally everything on the offense because he didn't feel anybody played great last night. I guess you could say their best performer was Jeremy Curley, 102 yards on 8 catches and a touchdown. But Jeremy Curley obviously is your best receiver. Torrey Smith has been really irrelevant all year long.
Even last year too.
I think Blaine Gabbert gets a lot of sort of the publicity for being so bad, but with the exception of Carlos Hyde, who he played well last night also, 78 yards and a touchdown, there's nobody on this offensive team, at least on the offensive side of the ball with San Francisco, that I would want on my team. Nobody excites me on the offensive line, at the receiver core, the running back position. Carlos Hyde is decent, but with the exception of there, nobody excites me. So I don't really give Blaine Gabbert all the credit for being bad. It's not like he has the Cardinals offense. It's not like he has David Johnson, Larry Fitzgerald, Michael Floyd, John Brown, Andre Ellington, Chris Johnson. He doesn't have those great athletes. I don't think Blaine Gabbert is necessarily all the problem, but I think he's some. I don't think Colin Kaepernick can possibly do any worse than what Gabbert's doing. That's why I would make the change. He adds the element with the running game. Even Gabbert's running it. He had 70 yards rushing last night, a touchdown. So with Kaepernick, you have a better output at the quarterback position with running-wise, and he can't be any worse than what Gabbert's doing. So that's why I would do the change. No matter, I would do it this week too.
Yeah, I would do it before the Buffalo game, and I kept saying this all year. I really thought Week 6 was going to be the time for Colin Kaepernick to be inserted as a starter. I even said on yesterday's show that Colin Kaepernick was going to be the big winner of this game because Blaine Gabbert was going to be so bad, even though Anthony and Alex agreed with me that Colin Kaepernick should be the starting quarterback. But we've seen what Kaepernick can do when he's good, and we've seen what Blaine Gabbert can do. And Blaine Gabbert has never been good at all in his career. Okay, Kaepernick has 56 touchdowns and 26 interceptions. Blaine Gabbert, on the other hand, has 38 touchdowns and 37 interceptions. Blaine Gabbert is 9 for 31. He is tied for the most losses in a quarterback's first 40 starts since 1970, and that other quarterback is Warren Moon, even though Warren Moon turned out to be a great player. That is pretty bad. 9 of 31 and 40 starts.
Yeah, I mean,
and Kaepernick, I think he has like 30. He has more than 30 wins.
Kaepernick's definitely not the player we saw when he first came out of college. I think defensive coordinators were not really up to par with these running quarterbacks. Think about Robert Griffin III, Colin Kaepernick. They had success, and now obviously they're not even playing. I realize Griffin has an injury, but he didn't even play last year in Washington. The only two guys that have sort of been able to make the adjustment from that running spread scheme are Cam Newton. I think that has to do with a lot of it because of his body. And then you have Russell Wilson, who can stand in the pocket and make the capable throws needed. These other guys, not so much. So I think when you look at Kaepernick's, maybe his stats, I think they're a little skewed. Jim Harbaugh makes him a lot better. That defense at the time, that offensive line, that running game made him a lot better. He's not the player he was when he led them to the Super Bowl. But he, like I said, he can't be any worse than Gabbert. That's why I would make the change. But really, I don't think it matters who you put under center. There's not going to be success there. That's just not a good team. Just top to bottom.
No, this is like the least talented team in the NFL.
Honestly, I think it's probably the Colts with the exception of Andrew Luck.
Yeah. But
without Andrew Luck, the Colts
close.
are the worst roster in the league.
They're pretty close.
But yeah, with San Francisco, great game week 1, 28-0 over the Rams. But since then, I mean, they only lost by 7 to Dallas, but every other game's been decided by double digits, including last night. The big winners in my eyes are the Arizona Cardinals, a game they absolutely had to win. I think they're very fortunate they played a team like San Francisco without Carson Palmer because you saw early on that offense was really struggling. Drew Stanton was not leading them to the promised land. David Johnson started getting going, and I think that really helped Stanton. He was only 11 of 28, so he barely completed over 30% of his passes, so he didn't do anything spectacular. So I think the Cardinals benefited from playing a bad team in San Francisco, and a big win. They're now 2-3. They were looking at 1-4. They still have a lot of tough matchups. They have to play Minnesota still. They have 2 matchups against Seattle. They have a tough schedule, and this was a big win.
They do. They have a tough schedule coming up, and it's going to be a tough road for the Cardinals to get back to the playoffs, especially with the Seattle Seahawks and the Rams. Can you believe that? The Rams tied for first place in NFC West.
No one can believe the Rams.
I can't believe that. After that brutal loss to the Niners, who I think it's kind of assured that this team's pretty bad. We thought the Rams were bad. It turns out it's reversed, and the Rams are now in first place.
I'm still not sold on the Rams.
Me neither.
We'll talk about them.
We'll talk about them later. But yeah, I'm not sold on them at all yet.
Yeah, big win for Arizona. Now they have a week and a half to get Carson Palmer through the concussion protocol, get him healthy. I think he's really a vocal part of that offense and a player they absolutely need. Like I said, they have the Jets their next game. Then they have Seattle. Then they go on the road to face the Panthers, another team who are sitting at 1-3 that were really struggling. That's going to be a really important game. The Cardinals are looking at maybe 5, 6, 7 losses if everything goes right and they avoid an injury. So a big win last night. I couldn't stress that anymore.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. You get something with the Cardinals. They understood what they had to do this week. You know, they understood that we have a backup quarterback in Drew Stanton. Nothing against him, but, you know, probably a backup quarterback in the league. Give it to David Johnson and just kind of give those little short passes to Larry Fitzgerald. And the defense, you know, Calais Campbell just mauling dudes, just destroying the San Francisco 49ers offensive line. And, yeah, they just did what they had to do to win. Now you're going to have to go to the Jets, probably have, if it's still Stanton, the same kind of thing, give the ball to David Johnson, get a little, you know, short passes to Larry Fitzgerald. If it's Carson Palmer, then maybe you throw a little bit of deep passes to John Brown. Maybe you kind of spread the offense a little bit more like that. But, yeah, it looks good for the Cardinals. Got the swagger back a little bit. You know, now you get a little bit of break to prepare for the New York Jets, who, I mean, we saw how good the Cardinals defense was. Now you get a chance to play against Fitzpatrick, who, you know, at least the last 2 weeks, not great.
He's been throwing just as many passes to the defense as he has to the offense recently, so definitely make a lot of good points there. All right, with that being said, we'll take our first break at the GSMC GSMC Football Podcast. I'm getting confused here. I'm doing so many things, you know. We'll take our first break at the GSMC Football Podcast. After the break, we'll be talking some more football. Do we want to jump into college on the next segment, guys? Or do you want to stick with the NFL and then we'll follow with college?
We'll just stick with the NFL.
Stick with the NFL. Okay, so we'll be previewing the NFL Week 5 slate of games. A lot of good matchups that we are looking forward to over the weekend. We have the return of a certain player that I think is going to make a lot of headlines this week and really put on a good performance. But we'll preview that next at the GSMC Football Podcast.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. All right, so we started off talking about the NFL game last night, 49ers against the Cardinals. Not the best game we've seen, kind of. Now we're getting into that Thursday Night Football stuff where the games aren't as good. But now we're going to transition to the other games that are this weekend. And we're going to start with somebody who's making a return, somebody who's had a nice little 4-week vacation, literally a vacation, made a little trip to Italy, got some paparazzi coverage there. Now he's coming back to the New England Patriots to face the Cleveland Browns. His name, Thomas Brady. And you got to figure this is probably the lock of the week, right? Like the New England Patriots. Yeah. I understand they're going to Cleveland. That's fine. But all that being said, Patriots are still favored because they should be favored. And Brady got his time off. Now he's getting relatively healthy Gronk. The team seems to be gelling a little bit. They got a little bit of motivation. They lost last week to the Bills. You got Brady as motivated as ever because of Deflategate. I understand that, you know, the Patriots lost last week, and that doesn't look good. But I got to figure they win by at least 14 against the Browns.
This is my absolute lock of the week.
I say they win by 17.
I love I love New England this week.
Yeah,
Tom Brady coming back. I think the biggest addition, sort of with Brady being gone, has been LeGarrette Blount with the running game. He's added a whole other element to that team. I realize Blunt's been there a couple of years now, and he's done okay. But I think now Josh McDaniels in that offensive coordinator position, calling the plays, can kind of lean on Blunt now as he had through the first 4 weeks, and say, okay, I realize Thompson will throw the ball a lot and throw the ball a lot more than Garoppolo and Brissett did. But you have that addition at the running game you can kind of trust. With New England, you haven't really had a solid running back per se for a couple of years. Like I realize you've had people like Deion Lewis out of the backfield who are good at catching the ball. But now you have someone who can actually run and adds a whole other element to that team. I think that's probably been the best addition with Tom Brady being gone. And the thing they can sort of lean on more become postseason time, because you're going to run into teams with good, solid defenses, probably Denver eventually, that are going to try and lock down your receivers and Gronkowski. So I think LeGarrette Blount's been the best addition to that team. He's 5th in the league with 352 yards rushing. So,
yeah, and LeGarrette Blount has been absolutely great this season so far. And don't forget, they don't have Deion Lewis right now, but when Deion Lewis does come back to this Patriots team, then that even adds a other element to this backfield. And I have to say, this is kind of an easy pick, but it has to be the lock of the week because I'm looking at the schedule up and down, and this is a for sure win for the Patriots, and they're in a good spot. They're already in first place in the AFC East. So, and you have Tom Brady coming back to a 3-1 Patriots team. The defense has been playing really good. Running game's good. So, yeah, I think this is the time for Tom Brady and the Patriots to make a postseason run right now.
I agree. The schedule's really beneficiary towards New England as well. Another lock I really like is I love the Steelers over the Jets. Steelers looked so good last week against Kansas City. And Ryan Fitzpatrick, no pun intended, I can't trust him about as far as I can throw him because he just cannot stop turning the ball over. 9 interceptions in 2 weeks. People are saying it's maybe a time to switch to Geno Smith. I wouldn't go that far. But I just cannot trust Ryan Fitzpatrick and the Jets right now. I love the Steelers this week. Le'Veon Bell returning, didn't miss a beat after being suspended 3 games and coming back from the injury. They look really good.
Yeah, they do. They do. And that was a huge game for the Steelers after being dismantled by the Eagles in Week 3, 34-0.
34-3.
34-3.
There we go. There's still a lot of good games on the slate of games this week. You mentioned the Eagles. They're going into Detroit, take on the Lions off of their bye week. I think the Eagles, really the surprise team in the whole NFL, really 3-0. I don't think anybody really expected that. Carson Wentz is tearing the league up. Definitely the rookie of the year if it ended right now. I think he's probably played better than Dak, honestly. But the Cowboys, as I mentioned, they will be at home to take on the Bengals. I think that's probably, in my eyes, the matchup of the weekend, the one that I'm going to be looking at more so than any others. I think the Bengals, you have a week and a half to prepare for Dak Prescott. The Cowboys are looking pretty good. The problem with the Cincinnati Bengals is when they get to the red zone, they can't get in the end zone. They seem to be kicking everything. I like the Bengals this week. I really do on the road. I think A.J. Green has another explosive game. He looked so good last week. I like the Bengals over the Cowboys.
Yeah, I can see that. I can see the Bengals coming in there. Like you said, they get a little bit extra time to prepare. Dak Prescott hasn't had a turnover yet, so he's been doing really well as a rookie quarterback. But you get the time to prepare, and you understand that the one thing with the Bengals, yes, they haven't been doing what they should do in the red zone as far as scoring touchdowns, but at least they get there every single time. So you got to think maybe sometimes law of averages, instead of getting the 5 field goals like they had last week against the Dolphins, maybe they hit a couple of them for touchdowns. You basically have to rattle Dak Prescott somehow. And we've seen with Cincinnati, the one thing that they do have a good front line who can get to the quarterback. And I understand that the Dallas Cowboys offensive line is maybe the best in the NFL. But if you can just rattle Dak Prescott just a little bit, just enough to where he's not as confident, because Dez Bryant, he may not play again this week, still has that foot problem. You get the Bengals with a long week. I can absolutely see the Bengals beating the Cowboys, even if it's in Dallas.
Yeah, and I think we're going to find out how for real this Dallas Cowboys team is. We're going to find out how for real Dak Prescott is. Definitely we're going to find out how for real Ezekiel Elliott is going against a solid run defense and the Bengals here. But, this is another important game for the Cincinnati Bengals, because I think they were a playoff team before the season. They got back on track with the win against Miami last Thursday. So I do have the Cincinnati Bengals winning this week as well. And, yeah.
It's a big game for the Bengals. They're trying to catch up and compete with Baltimore and with Pittsburgh, who are both 3-1. They can't afford to go 2-3. They just simply cannot do that. So that's why I think the Bengals are going to win the game. Their backs are against the wall, kind of. I think that really will play to their advantage a little bit. You mentioned Dallas. We'll see what they're really made of. I think that's a good point. They're trying to compete as well in the NFC East. It's still really competitive. Each team at least with 2 wins. So you look at the NFC East. Every team, if you go 9-7 or 8-8, you're going to win the league. But really, every single team now is kind of competitive. There's not a terrible team in that league. In that NFC East, I don't think. So
yeah, and pretty much I think every team in that division got a little bit better over the offseason, as you can see from the records here.
Yeah, I think so too. Let's talk about the Sunday night game. We have the Giants going into Lambeau Field to take on the Packers, who are fresh off their bye week. Odell Beckham Jr. kind of making noise all week long about his antics off the field, sort of his outbursts, what he's been saying to the media, how he's not having fun playing anymore. He feels like no matter what he does, he's going to get flagged for it. You have Tom Coughlin coming in to try and mentor him and calm him down a little bit. Eli Manning was really vocal, telling reporters that Odell needs to play a lot smarter, keep a level head, kind of focus on the field, which I really agree with. What Eli Manning said that I kind of was like, wow, that's not really something Eli does. He kind of backs his teammates up. So for him to do that, it means that he's kind of not looking at this not so serious, and he's really taking it serious. So I really thought that was good by Eli. You have Green Bay at home coming off of a bye week. I got to like the Packers, and that's me being totally unbiased here because I am a Packers fan. But Aaron Rodgers, prime time, is always solid. Top 3 quarterback in prime time, seems like, when you look at the averages with QBR and stuff. The Giants, I just can't really trust. I loved them going into the season. They were my pick to win the NFC East. But Eli Manning's still prone to making turnovers at wrong opportunistic times. I got to like Green Bay.
I think this might be game of the week. I think it has that potential to be game of the week. You got to have all the storylines surrounding Odell Beckham, with all the comments he made this week. And I think this is a bounce-back game, like a chance for him to have a really good, solid game against the Green Bay Packers. Because remember, Green Bay Packers got torched by Marvin Jones and Stephon Diggs the past 2 games. So I think this is a perfect game for Odell Beckham to get back on track, and as well as Sterling Shepard and Victor Cruz. So I love the receiving core there in New York. And the Packers, they're on a bye week, so they're fresh, and they're a more healthier team now than the Giants right now. So, yeah, I think this has potential to be a really good game.
So here's the thing with Odell Beckham, right? He's had the whole comments over the week that everyone's either gone against him and said, you need to stop complaining, you need to do this or that. You have Brandon Marshall, who had his own kind of demons, everything else like that when he was in Denver, Miami, and stuff like that. He's saying those guys over there need to be careful. They don't need to be speaking out of the teammates. Basically saying, keep this stuff in-house. Don't do it publicly. If you want to criticize him, fine, totally good with that. But be careful of what you do because you could alienate the dude. If you just kind of yell at him every time, guys can only take that so much before they kind of shut down, right? And you get John Gruden who's saying they should bench Odell Beckham, which is weird because you coached Keyshawn Johnson when you won the Super Bowl in Tampa Bay. Keyshawn was just as loud as Odell Beckham was, but that seemed to be okay with that. It's one of those things where I'm not saying what Odell Beckham did was good because maybe you don't kind of voice all your frustrations all at once so the media can basically have a field day on it. But you can't totally just, yell at Odell Beckham and say, this is your fault, you need to stop doing this, you need to man up, all the stuff like that. Listen a little bit to what he says. And, clearly he has some short circuit when it comes to if someone's messing with him, he loses his mind. There's some trigger in there that's, not like other people. You've seen before. I mean, Julio Jones, Calvin Johnson, A.J. Green, all of them are fantastic receivers, and they don't seem to lose their mind as much as Odell Beckham does. Dez Bryant does a little bit, but I've never really seen Dez do it as far as, player to player. His is more on the sideline when his teams are losing. He loses his mind and does all stuff there. Odell's the only one that does it, so figure out what the problem is and try and help it that way instead of just excoriating him in the media and stuff like that. That's not going to help him as much, I don't think. And now you have a game this week where they're playing a team that they could beat. Like you said, they've had success against the Packers every now and then. So
the Giants always, as a Packer fan, I watch all the games. Okay,
right.
So I've been a fan my whole life.
Yeah,
the Giants are literally the Packers' kryptonite. NFC Championship game when Eli won his first Super Bowl. Packers are 15-1. A couple years later, with Aaron Rodgers, they lose to the Giants in the divisional round. Giants win their second Super Bowl. Every time we play them, it's a close game. The Giants just have the Packers' number. Ben McAdoo, head coach, former offensive coordinator with the Packers, quarterback coach as well. So he knows that team as well. Mm-hmm. The Giants are just Packers' kryptonite. It's just it seems like there's always teams. Every team has one. The Seahawks have the Rams. The Rams always play the Seahawks tough. The Giants always play the Packers tough. It's just one of those things.
Mm-hmm. And you have the chance now to get Odell Beckham back confidence-wise. Throw to him early. He only had 23 yards, something like that the week before. Very much to the struggle. So if you can get him over 100 yards this week, get him a touchdown or so, get him involved early. Eli Manning will always have those games where he shouldn't win a game, but somehow he wins a game. And I'm going to take this as the upset. I'm going to say that the Giants beat the Packers. Sorry.
No, don't apologize to me. Sorry. That's the one thing in sports that, of course, I'm a passionate fan. I love my teams.
Right.
I have my Packers. I have my Arsenal. Among others. But that's the one thing I don't get upset in sports. I'm not the owner of the team. I don't get a paycheck. I'm not going to lose sleep if the Giants win. If Arsenal loses. If somehow Cal is good at football, which they're okay. But I'm not going to lose sleep. So. It's possible. The Giants always have the Packers' number. They just seem to always beat them. So anything can happen.
Yeah, and back to what you just said, I don't lose any sleep with the Niners losing because I knew they were terrible coming in. So I was like, well, I expected them to go 1-4. I thought they'll be 0-5 at this point. So
I thought they beat the Rams week 1. So
I thought
I give them that one.
No, I thought the Rams were going to dominate that game with Todd Gurley, but that didn't happen, and I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, and I don't know, I'm like, the Niners don't pay my bills, so why do I have to worry about them?
Exactly.
Like that, so.
You mentioned the Rams, and I want to talk about them real quick before we end the segment. 3-1, I'd say probably the biggest surprise of any team. Philadelphia at 3-0 has been good. The Rams, kind of not so much. I mean, they won a game where they didn't even score a touchdown. They go in and put up 37 the next week against Tampa Bay, and then they just shut down Arizona last week.
With Carson Palmer, quarterback.
Right. So now you have the Rams at 3-1, hosting the Bills this weekend in L.A. This is actually my upset. I like the Bills in this game. Ever since that Week 2 loss to the Jets on Thursday Night Football, the Bills have kind of looked like a different team. Their defense is playing a lot better, and you kind of scratch your head there because they fire their offensive coordinator, and then the defense starts playing lights out. So not really sure what to make of that there. But I like the Bills. They look a lot better. You have Marcel Darius coming back from suspension on that defensive line. That should be a huge, huge addition. He's one of the best interior linemen in the league. So he can sort of help the Bills front try and lock down Todd Gurley. They're going to lean on him a lot. Case Keenum, not really one of the best quarterbacks in the league, as we all know. So I like the Bills in this game. They're playing a lot better. I think Tyrod Taylor can make more plays than Case Keenum. I think LaShawn McCoy, running back, helps. The Rams have a good defense, and Jeff Fisher's really got them playing well. But I like the Bills in a close, low-scoring game.
Yeah, and I think this game is going to be very low-scoring. I really want to pick the Rams in this game, but I'm just not sold on them yet. It's like I'm just not. I can't do it. So I have to go on with the Bills here because they have won 2 straight games. After that terrible performance on defense against the New York Jets. But, yeah, I have to go with the Bills here. It's like they come on fire on defense all of a sudden. It's like, what happened? They lit a match or something. So, yeah, I do think this is going to be a low-scoring game as well. And, remember, they're playing Case Keenum. He hasn't been lining it up either. Case Keenum, I'm sorry. I call him Case Keenum. I don't know why.
We all are pretty much waiting for the Rams to be 8-8 again, right? That's kind of what we're kind of assuming is going to happen. Yeah. Jeff Fisher has that kind of reputation of 8-8, so we're all trying to figure out how he gets back to 8-8. He loses this game against Buffalo. All right, 3-2. Maybe he wins against the Lions. All right, but then you lose against the Giants, maybe the Panthers, the Jets. The Patriots they play later, the Seahawks, the Cardinals, the Falcons. Okay, they can get back to 8-8 because that's basically what we're assuming is going to happen, right? And I'm kind of with you guys in the sense of Buffalo's going to get a little bit of confidence. Marcel Darius is back. Tyrod Taylor can run around and do some things. LaShawn McCoy is a good running back. I can see the same thing. I'm picking the Bills partly, if nothing else, if I'm being 100% honest, because I'm assuming that the Rams are going to be 8-8 at the end of the year, and this is how the downward spiral starts.
The Rams are averaging 16 points a game, and they're 3-1. They cannot keep that up.
They can't. No, they can't.
You know what I mean?
No.
And but with that being said, I would not be surprised if the Rams start off 5-1. They have the Bills, a very winnable game, And then next week they have Detroit, another winnable game. So who knows, man? It's the NFL. I really feel like any given Sunday, any team could beat anybody.
Even if they go 5-1, I still won't be sold on them. I just can't.
Kind of like how Denver a few years back with Kyle Orton were 8-0, and then they finished 0-8, so they ended at 8-8.
Right.
Kind of like the Rams in my eyes, but you got to give them credit. They're 3-1.
Yeah, and at the beginning of the year,
I
don't know how either. At the beginning of the season, I'm like, why is Jeff Fisher still a coach in the NFL? He hasn't done anything since he came to St. Louis, who the team is now in LA.
He's gonna get a 10-year extension off of 3-1.
Yeah, yeah. And then he's been to one Super Bowl, which he lost to the Rams, ironically enough. Right. And in his last 4 years in Tennessee, remember he ran Vince Young out of town, and they couldn't get anything going consistently. So Jeff Fisher he's really good at stealing money as a head coach. I'm just telling you that right now. He's really good at stealing money.
Well, in Jeff Fisher's sort of defense, I think Vince Young kind of ran himself out of town. But
they had like a little internal conflict. But
right.
Yeah.
So we'll be back on Monday talking about all the great NFL games. Going to be previewing the Monday Night Football matchup as well. We have the Buccaneers against the Panthers. Cam Newton did not practice today, so who knows if he'll be clear with that concussion for Monday. In a big, big game, they're sitting at 1-3. They cannot afford to go 1-4, but with Derek Anderson quarterbacking, if Cam Newton can't go with that concussion, makes things a lot harder. So we'll be back on Monday to preview that. But with that being said, we'll take our last break at the GSMC Football Podcast. After the break, we'll talk about this week's games in college football. A lot of good matchups, ACC, SEC, Pac-12, and we will be back just after the break at the GSMC Football Podcast.
Always on the go, but the day just won't be one without your Hollywood fix. Let Golden State Media Concepts Entertainment Podcast take care of that. Jordan and Keith is Entertainment Tonight meets Access Hollywood.
I'm Jordan. The guy laughing, that's Keith.
Yeah, I'm Keith.
An all-inclusive look of pop culture.
And welcome back to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. And now we're going to get into some college football action that's going to kick off this weekend. So there's a lot slated games, and most notably there's that top 25 match between Florida State and the Miami Hurricanes Saturday night. But that ain't the only matchup. We also got Alabama going on the road against 16-ranked Arkansas, so that's going to be the toughest test for Alabama so far. And so what are some other games that you guys are looking forward to this weekend in college football?
I think we should start off with the other matchup in the SEC that we talked about on the show last week, Tennessee, with me thinking they're just the most confusing team in college football.
And they still are.
And yet again, on Saturday, they give us another reason to be confused by them. They go down 17-0 against Georgia. They come back and score a touchdown at the end of the half, and then you have them winning, looking like they're going to win. Then you have Georgia complete that long catch and run to score with 10 seconds left to take a 3-point lead, and you assume the game is over. And then Tennessee completes the miracle. They complete the Hail Mary to win and stay undefeated against Georgia, down by double digits again in that first half and come back and win. I don't understand how Tennessee is still undefeated, but now, in my eyes, this is their toughest test of the season. They go on the road to face Texas A&M, who's undefeated, 8th in the nation, one of the toughest atmospheres to play in college football, Kyle Field, the 12th man. I got to think that Tennessee's early half struggles and how they sort of play comes back to haunt them against A&M. I do like the Aggies in this game. If Tennessee want to try and come from behind and beat Texas A&M like they have every other team all year long, I just don't see it happening. They have a great defensive front. Tennessee's offensive line is suspect. Trevor Knight hasn't done really great passing the ball, but he adds that element to running. I like Texas A&M in this game.
Yeah, and I do too. And you know how we were talking about the Rams, how we're not sold on them in the previous segment? Well, I'm not sold on Tennessee either. Even though they are undefeated, they have won some close games and some come-from-behind victories. I'm not sold on this team. They're not going to be able to do what they have done lately against teams like, in the top 5. They're not going to do it. And Texas A&M is probably the best team they faced so far this year. And I'm not sold on Tennessee. I had them as the East favorite in the SEC, the East Division. And luckily for them, they're in the weaker division SEC because I can't see this team going toe-to-toe with Alabama and all the other teams in the West. I just can't see it. But this is a really intriguing matchup between 8 and 9. I have Texas A&M. They look like the better, most consistent team so far this season.
All right, Anthony, I know you like Tennessee.
I do. Here's the thing. Like, I understand everything you're saying about Tennessee. They're probably not the best team in the SEC. That's totally fine. I understand that. They're a bit of a mirage. That's fine. Their team is kind of like, I was telling this to Ben before and the other one in the sports podcast, so they're kind of like that guy, that friend of yours that always kind of dates crazy chicks and always likes chaos. Everything's just kind of falling around, but he's like, no, it's kind of fun. Let's do this. Why not? Let's keep going. They've had the games where they should have lost back to back, whether it be Appalachian State, whether it be Georgia. They've always had these games where it's like, okay, they're going to lose. Wait, what? How? Okay, they won. They beat Florida the same way. I'm going to say this week against A&M, it's going to stay. I'm not saying next week because after that, they got Alabama. They're not beating Alabama. Alabama's insane. Alabama's got Nick Saban. He's a cheat code to the SEC. He just wins. That's what he does. Cool, fine, fantastic. This week, I understand it's in Texas A&M. It's not totally an upset if I pick Tennessee because it's 8 versus 9, which is basically just kind of like the people that are, ranking them just kind of like, cool, you're 8 and you're 9. Like, there's no real definitive way to do it because they're both undefeated. You have a team that has just confidence in themselves, right? So one of those things, like Texas A&M, they've obviously been great. They're 5-0. They've beaten UCLA, who was ranked at the time. You got Arkansas, who was ranked at the time. You got a good win against South Carolina. You beat Auburn. Like, you've had good wins for Texas A&M. With Tennessee, the way they beat Florida, the way they beat Georgia, the way they beat Appalachian State, it's one of those things like they can be down 17 in the middle of the third quarter, and they're not going to freak out. All they're going to be like, oh, we're down. Okay, cool, that's great. And they're going to have the confidence to come back. Texas A&M, I understand how good they are. I just, it's kind of one of those, like, if you're in Vegas, you got a hot streak. I can't bet against Tennessee right now. I just can't.
Okay, that is a fair point, but, like, if you constantly go down 17-0.
Oh, it's going to come back to bite you to a certain point, 100%.
I'm just saying, they're not going to keep that going all year long.
But I say that's against Alabama, though, not against Texas A&M. I'm saying Alabama's the time where, like, they're down 17. No, they're going to lose.
Even against Texas A&M, I still think they're going to have a tough time coming back.
True.
Because Texas A&M, they're a pretty good defense as well.
Right. No, yeah, absolutely. No, I understand that. And, like, if you're going to go logically, 100%, you say that. Because Texas A&M, they've given up 24-16, 24-13. I'm not including the game against Prairie View because, no. But, those other games, they haven't given up.
They're pretty good this year. Don't get me wrong.
Prairie View?
I mean, they have some studs on that offensive line and defensive front.
Name one player. I'm kidding.
I mean,
just say like Davis or Jones or something like that. There's got to be someone else.
I mean, Johnson's really had a great.
Yeah, perfect.
There
you go.
What about Mike Jones?
I mean, he stops rapping and now he plays for Prairie View and he's doing great. So no,
Mike Jones,
but Tennessee. Anthony, you bring up some good points. I would not be surprised if they somehow win this game because they were just literally finding ways to win games. Yeah. And I guess you can say that's what championship teams do, but I got to think if they get off to a bad start on the road against this team, they're going to really struggle. But who knows? I mean, we've seen crazier things.
They have to get off to a fast start in this game. They have to.
I agree. All right, another game with a lot of compelling storylines is the Red River rivalry shootout. We have Texas, Oklahoma, Texas State Fair. It's at the Cotton Bowl in Dallas. Both coaches, Charlie Strong with Texas, Bob Stoops with Oklahoma, kind of on the hot seat. A game where both teams are sitting at 2-2. Oklahoma is ranked 20th in the nation. Texas unranked. Texas a great win week 1 against Notre Dame, but we see that Notre Dame's not really the team that we thought they were at the start of the season. So I think that win is kind of not as big of a win as we initially thought. Texas really struggling losing their last 2 games. Oklahoma a good road win last week against TCU, a shootout 52-46. Baker Mayfield seems to sort of calm down and settle down since his 2 losses against Houston and Ohio State. I like Oklahoma in this game. I realize Texas won last year when no one thought they would. Charlie Strong is really on the hot seat. I think a lot of that might be getting to him. Their Texas defense is terrible. I like Oklahoma in this game. I like them big. I think Oklahoma wins by double digits.
Yeah, I like Oklahoma in this game too because last week I talked about how Oklahoma needs to get back on track because Bob Stoops' job was on the line as well. And they did. They did that, and then they took care of business. Now they're ranked 20th, so now they kind of have a little bit of their swagger back in sort of a way. Texas, though, man, this defense is just flat out terrible. We thought that the Texas Longhorns were back after that week 1 win against Notre Dame. Like you said, Ben, Notre Dame ended up not even being that good. And Texas lost 2 consecutive games to Cal, which they lost in a shootout. And then last week against Oklahoma State and another shootout, they allowed like 30, more than 30 points at halftime. Am I really? So the fact that they're playing against Baker Mayfield, who I think is getting back on track and is starting to be the best college quarterbacks in the game again, I just can't give Texas a chance in this game. I just can't.
Yeah, no, I understand that, because the thing with Texas is they've given up a lot of points to not the best teams, right? You lose 50-43 to Cal, and you lose 49-31 to Oklahoma State. The other game where because again, UTEP. But Notre Dame, they gave up 47 points. They've given up at least 47 points in all three of those games. Their defense has been, shaky to say it in the best context. And with Oklahoma, yeah, they've lost 2 games, and Bob Stoops is probably on the hot seat. But the 2 games they lost, Houston, seems understandable, and Ohio State, understandable. They may not be the best team in the world, but they're not as bad as the 2-2, because if those are the two games you're going to lose, you're losing to 2 teams in the top 5. So that part totally makes sense. The problem with Texas is I think they lose. I think Oklahoma wins. Charlie Strong and Bob Stoops are both on the hot seat with these things, and if Charlie Strong loses, it's not like it's going to get much better for him, because Texas, they have to play Baylor later on in the year, and if he loses both of those games, I don't think Texas fires him midway through the season, but if he loses both of those games, you got West Virginia after that. I think he gets fired after the year, absolutely. I just don't think he gets fired midway through the year, but if he loses against Oklahoma, he's pretty much dead man walking.
Yeah, pretty much. He pretty much on the sideline for the last few games.
Yeah, Charlie Strong, his third year now, that's really when you're supposed to make that transition, because you have a few years to get your recruits in now, time to change the system. And Texas is an elite coaching job in football.
It is. It has been historically.
They have a lot of great coaches out there that could be on the way out. You look at Tom Herman with Houston. He's going to attract a lot of interest. Les Miles just got fired. I don't think Chip Kelly's an NFL coach. I think if the Niners somehow let him go, he'll try and stay in there, but no one will take a chance.
I don't think it will happen after this year. Maybe
no,
after
I don't either. But
yeah.
I don't think Chip Kelly's an NFL coach. So I think eventually he won't be the head coach of the San Francisco 49ers, and no one in the NFL will want to take a chance on him. So then he goes back to college, and honestly, college is a match made in heaven with Kelly, with the way he wants to run his style of offense, how he can recruit. If somehow he just bolted and went to Texas, I think that'd be a match made in heaven. Obviously, look at high school football in Texas. That's the top state, along with some of the states in the South, like Florida, Georgia, California here on the West Coast is really good too. But I think if he were to somehow go to Texas eventually, I think that'd be a match made in heaven. But obviously, that's a lot of things have to happen in order for that to happen. But Charlie Strong, I think it's kind of unfortunate, but I think he is sort of on the way out. With Charlie Strong, I don't really give a lot of blame to him. I realize he's the coach. He's the one you have to fire. But look at just Texas in general with colleges. Think about how many schools in Texas are good college programs. So you have Houston ranked in the top 6 right now. You have Baylor. You have Oklahoma's nearby. You have
Texas A&M.
Yeah, Texas
TCU.
Tech, even though Texas Tech is not ranked.
Right, TCU, Texas Tech. You have 6 or 7 schools all right there that you could go to. So all these great recruits are getting kind of split up. So you have a lot of great teams. You don't really just have everybody going to Texas where you did 6, 7, 8 years ago. So I don't really put a lot of blame on Charlie Strong, but you have to put the blame on him, unfortunately, because he's the coach. He's the one who recruits the players and everything.
Yeah, and you talk about since 2010, they've lost at least 4 games. They were 5-7 in 2010, 8-5 2011, 9-4 in 2012, 8-5 in 2013. So it's not like Charlie Strong, when he came in, had great talent there. Like, they were struggling before he even got there, and his job was to kind of fix the mess. They've done a little bit better, but you're still dealing with Texas being Texas, and the people that are the boosters in Texas want them to be what they were in, say, 2005 when they went undefeated and won the Rose Bowl.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely something that we'll have to monitor, and on Monday we'll have to see what happens with this game. I like Oklahoma, though.
Yeah, I like Oklahoma, too. And before we go, I just want to say I think a lot of college programs are kind of rooting for Chip Kelly to not do so well with the Niners because, like you said, Chip Kelly is a better fit for college.
It's a match made in heaven with Chip Kelly in college. The scheme, the style of offense, how he can recruit, how he sort of – because with college football, you have your head coach is not only your head coach. He's your GM. He's your program of director of operations. He picks all the players. So definitely all the coordinators and everything. So I think Chip Kelly is a match made in heaven for college. But real quick, the last game we should preview this weekend is Florida State and Miami. You teased it, Jeremiah. Miami ranked 10th in the nation. It's great to see the U back sort of ranked in the top 10 as they were early in the 2000s. You have Mark Richt in his first season. I think he's a very good, solid head coach. I think at Georgia, he got a bad rep because he didn't win the big games. But I thought he was still a good coach. Now he has a chance to turn around Miami around. And you have Florida State, who lost last week against North Carolina. Their defense is just absolutely terrible. They just can't seem to stop anybody. You have a great running back in Dalvin Cook, who's put up monster numbers. But I really can't trust Florida State in this game. I think they're maybe on paper a better team than Miami, but I don't really know what to expect in this game because I think either team can really walk away with a win. But I'll take Miami since they're at home. I think that I realize not much of a home game. Both teams are in Florida, but still that atmosphere, the crowd, maybe a little bit in Miami's favor.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to take Miami as well. It's actually great to see the U back in the top 10, and this team has improved dramatically since last year. But with Florida State, they are not good as we thought they would be. Because remember that opening weekend game against Ole Miss? They came back and won that game after Ole Miss blew I think like a 20-point lead. So we're like, okay, Florida State, okay, maybe they are good. But then a couple weeks later, they had to go on the road to Louisville, and they got dismantled by Lamar Jackson and company. And they just haven't been the same since that game against Louisville. This is not the same team we have been accustomed to watching the past couple years, especially when they were in the national championship when Jameis Winston was a quarterback. So this is not the same defense. This defense is just terrible. It's just terrible. So that's why I have to go with the U here. I just think they're just a better team in general.
Yeah, I would agree with that because you got the University of Miami who, yeah, they're undefeated and maybe they don't look as strong as you'd hope they would be because the teams they've beaten so far, Florida Atlantic, Appalachian State, even Georgia Tech, who runs that weird kind of spread running ball all the time offense, they haven't looked as strong, but at least they are undefeated. Florida State, like you said, got dismantled by Louisville. Then they lost last week to North Carolina, who is a good team. But the fact that they're 3-2, you're going into Miami, it's a night game, they're all charged up. Miami and Florida State's one of those kind of rivalries in the state that's kind of like, even though it's out of the state, Texas, Oklahoma, Auburn, Alabama, kind of one of those rivalry games that everybody will get up for. Spent the whole week kind of preparing for them in the sense of if we can beat Florida State, now you can maybe actually start saying the U is back, even though they beat a 3-2 team. They finally beat a Florida State team. And you look at some of the players that are on the University of Miami, and they have been better than what you would hope they would be because you had Al Golden the last few years, hasn't exactly done what they would hope he would do. Now you get Mark Richt, who got the knock on him because he doesn't win as much in the SEC, when, to be fair, the only two coaches that ever really won in the SEC were Urban Meyer and Nick Saban. But you get Brad Kaya. He's coming in. He's getting a little bit better every year. 935 yards, 8 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. You got Yerby over there as a running back, and you also got Walden, so they got at least a two-headed running back system there. Defense is getting a little bit better. They had 2 touchdowns on defense last week against Georgia Tech. In Miami, I would have the University of Miami beating Florida State.
Good pick. Good analyst there. I like that. I know you're a Miami fan, so you have sort of a more in-depth look than Jeremiah and I might, but we still follow him, and it's like I said, it's great to see Miami back ranked. They kind of have fallen off recently. Another thing with Florida, you have so many good schools in Florida that really get a lot of good recruits, and really in the South in general, so they can kind of spread out a little bit. But on Monday, we will recap the weekend of college football here at the GSMC Football Podcast, as well as update you guys on the new AP Top 25 poll. Have to see if anything changes drastically. Obviously, there will be sub-change because teams have to lose in the top 25 because there's matchups within them. So we'll always have to update you here at the GSMC Football Podcast. But that's going to conclude our show for today. I feel like we had a great show. Talked a lot about the NFL, college football.
It was very great. I think the best show that we ever did.
No, I think really the headline is going to be Louisiana Tech and Memphis, their victories. But
yeah.
We'll have to wait and see.
That might be the title of the episode.
It might have to just be the title.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I'm Ben.
I'm Jeremiah.
And I'm Anthony.
And we will be back on Monday. I hope you have a great weekend and watch a lot of games in the NFL and college football these next couple of days. Bye, guys.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.